And we are live from AVEIRO Art House, our actually last live stream of fourth Roundtable. And we are closing the program, 2-week capacity building program for independent musicians and labels called Break in Case of Emergency. It's a project supported by Music IRE program, co-funded by European Union. And we have really incredible 2 weeks behind us, consisted of master classes, roundtables, practical assignments, music live shows, immersion activities, so really rich program. We had the opportunity to discuss topics such as new technologies, such as copyright, PR and marketing in music, and to meet actually really incredible people, experts about Portuguese and international. And also we gathered a really nice group of people, of our participants in AVEIRO that contributed with their curiosity and knowledge and insights and questions and interactions, so thank you for that. Some of them were really regular students, didn't miss any class. And I hope that you have enjoyed as much as we have during the preparation and the implementation of this program. I would like to thank to all our partners, also to City Hall of AVEIRO and our guest organization speakers, and last but not least, to thank our production technical team that for their hard work and endurance. we survived. And after this, we are actually publishing survival kit, how to make the program and not sleep for 2 weeks. But actually, it will be a survival kit for independent artists and musicians. That will be a digital publication with free access, and actually kind of sum up of what we were talking about for these 2 weeks. So for those that couldn't attend or didn't follow us on live stream, this publication will be available by the end of this year. And before I open this roundtable, sorry this takes a little bit longer, but it's my last moment, in front of cameras.
Enjoy.
No, I want to invite you for after party tomorrow. So actually the closure is tomorrow, so people, you need to come, because it will be a great lineup, and we open with the audiovisual installation, so at 9 p.m. in Gretua, until who knows when. And but okay, and now our last conversation will be actually about the role of the press in today's music scene, moderated by our dear collaborator Isilda Sanches from Antena 3. Thank you for coming again.
Thank you.
And we have a guest from UK and Portugal. So Isilda, microphone is yours, finally.
Thank you. Thank you, Lana. Thank you very much. Okay, good evening. Thank you for being here. And so it's been 2 weeks of hard work, and we have finally the release is ready, and now someone has to talk about it, and it's a journalist, I guess. And we are going to try and discuss a bit how that's done, or how can that be done in today's, overwhelming world, where almost every day something new comes out in every genre of music that we can imagine. So with me, I'll make a very brief presentation, and then I'll ask all these guests to specify what they actually do. But starting on my right, Mário Lopes, he writes for Público. He's a Portuguese journalist, specialized in music for quite a long time. We have Janelle Borg, and she runs Amplify. She works for Amplify. Yeah. Now we have Melissa Taylor. You run Taylor's Communication, and you founded. You're the founder, so you created it. And we have Derek Walmsley. He's also a journalist, and he writes for The Wire, which is a very well-known and with impeccable reputation magazine that's been, being published for 40 years now?
40 years.
40 years, yeah. Who would imagine? So I would start by asking you to, specify what is it you do actually, and for how long have you been doing it before, we go into the specifics so that we can know each other a little bit better. And Mário, maybe I'll start with you.
Okay. Good night, everyone. So Mário Lopes, that's me. Isilda already told that. I started working for a weekly music magazine, in 1999. That's called Blitz. Now it only exists online. Afterwards, we were colleagues in Diário de Notícias. That's a national daily newspaper, and for the last 17 years I've been working at Público, also a national newspaper, working for the cultural section, and mainly for its art supplement Ípsilon that comes out every Friday. Occasionally I did some work on radio in Antena 3 also. Isilda also works there.
It's a small world.
Yeah. I had a program there for some years that was trying to get back to that ancient habit of listening to a record from beginning to end. That was the program. Me and a friend listening to a record from beginning to end and talking about it. And that kind of feeling and ways to look at the music is something that I try to translate also to the things I write. I try. That's it.
Yeah. Janelle?
Hi everyone. So I work for Amplify, amongst many other things, because I'm a freelancer.
You also have a band.
Yeah, I also have a band. But with Amplify, as I mentioned earlier, I mainly do content, and I also kind of run the community aspect of it all, including, repping the company and events like this, basically. So
So Janelle, as well as Melissa, were doing some masterclasses this afternoon. Hands-on.
We've been talking a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm Melissa, and I run a PR communication agency called Tailored Communication. Been working in music for 25 years. I'm very tired. I primarily do artist publicity, management, and consulting for artists and labels, and I'm primarily focused on print press and online and radio, and I run a record pool as well, putting out dance bangers into the world.
I'm Derek Walmsley. I'm the editor of the music magazine The Wire, which is a independent magazine based in London, covering, I suppose, independent and DIY underground music. I started sort of writing a little bit about music in the early 2000s. I did a couple of blogs, and I was writing quite a lot about like grime music in London, which was really exciting at that time. I started freelance writing for The Wire, a couple of other places, mostly The Wire. In 2004, through and listening to big piles of CDs and records to see what might be interesting to cover, and I became the editor in 2015.
Okay, so since you've been talking about, independent music, and it's like the core of this seminar, I would like to ask all of you if you really decided as a career move, I want to work in independent, talking about independent music in your case, Mário, or helping independent artists to get more known in both Melissa and Janelle's case, or you as a journalist also in The Wire, getting people there. Did you specifically thought about, making it independently, or you just wanted to work with music no matter, where it comes from, how it was made, either with independent means or with the mainstream labels? How was it? Derek, since you have the mic, go ahead.
Sure. I think I mostly wanted to write about independent music. I think through the 90s and 2000s, I think, especially in Europe, I think there was a really massive explosion of some really interesting independent labels, artists, new networks being created, especially festivals and so on. And that was the explosion that I wanted to cover. You know, sure, there was lots of other good music around, but I saw lots of interesting independent activity and people doing things in interesting ways, experimenting with interesting approaches of making music. And I saw people writing about it and making it, and I wanted to be part of it,
Melissa, how was it when you decided to create tailored communication? Did you want to specifically work with independent artists and independent labels?
Yes. I actually trained at Slice PR. After university, I did an internship there, which was a pop music agency, working on stuff like Kylie Minogue and Craig David, and it was fun for a while, but it was also kind of abusive, and it wasn't a very nice experience for me, and nearly made me leave the music industry. And then after that, I always worked for independent like clubs and networks. I worked for Independent when I was a journalist a long time ago, and it was a very conscious decision for me at Tailored that we were going to support independent artists. That aligns with my politics and my social beliefs as well. I do work for major labels sometimes, and it's pretty traumatic and
is it much different?
It's very different. Like the difference between working with someone who's independent, who maybe has a little team around them, versus you have 20 people on an email and you have no idea what any of them do. I prefer the experience, and I believe that it's important work as well. If we don't support independent people, artists, networks, communities, then we've kind of let capitalism win.
Yeah, so it's a question of ethics also.
Yeah, totally, definitely.
Okay. Is it also that what happens with you, Janelle?
It's a bit of a different story in my case, because it mainly started, like I was telling you guys, from being in a band and being involved like in the music industry back home in Malta, it's a very small music industry, like mainly DIY, since the age of 13, literally. So yeah, I have a lot of less than ideal experiences. Yeah, so I mean, being a woman in a music industry that's mostly male dominated, especially the rock scene, you kind of have to learn quickly. And then when we moved to the UK, kind of, you have to learn the ropes. So I'm like, instead of paying other people to do marketing and to put ourselves out there, I'll do it myself. And kind of that's how I got involved in marketing, really, because I managed to learn everything. I did a lot of courses and stuff. Initially to help the band and, to get bookings and stuff. At a point we lied that we live in London when we're living in Malta. So we're going back and forth. It worked. It's like, fake it till you make it.
Yeah, fake it till you make it. If it works,
So that's how I got involved. And then I had the opportunity I still have the opportunity to work with a couple of companies that, like, again, align with my values and ethics and support independent music. So yeah, kind of managed to turn my passion into my day job, I guess.
Congratulations. Oh. Mário, yours is probably, your case is probably a bit different because you also have to work being a journalist for a daily newspaper. You have to write about music that it's not independent.
Yes, of course. We have to balance it. I mean, I didn't start with an overtly interest in the independent scene. I mean, I finished my degree in communication, science of communication, specialization in journalism, and I knew I wanted to write about music. That was it. But when I started working in a musical newspaper, of course, you start covering the ground, discovering the new scenes that are emerging. So my interest was developing while I was learning the trade, so to speak. But of course, my main interest is in what develops from the independent music scene.
Because you also had at least one band.
Yeah, I tried to. I tried to play some
I think you
drums
were not
too.
that good at promoting your own band. Maybe
no,
you should have talked to Janelle, that she could have taught you some secrets. But
yeah, very bad. The band started. We released the last one. We released the record, and the presentation of the record was also the goodbye concerts.
So you must have quite an interesting, perspective on the not well-known band that tries to call the attention of the journalist. You being the journalist, did you write about yourself?
Yeah.
There's a documentary in there, says Melissa. Maybe you should think about it.
I mean, of course, it's working on a national daily newspaper. We got to have a balance between trying to cover what's more groundbreaking and what we think is musically or artistically interesting, and we got to balance it with, of course, also giving the readers that are not specialized or mainly interested in music other things that I mean that you can't avoid if you two or whatever release a record. We gotta go there.
Yeah.
But the good thing is that the good thing about the smallness of the country and is that and the fact that we don't have that much music press is that, for instance, in Ípsilon, what we do is we have at the same time to be the ones that show what is developing and happening in the underground, and at the same time we got to give it the mainstream thing, but with no hierarchy.
Yeah.
So we can make a
Lucky
cover.
you.
Yeah, we can make a cover about a band that it's only starting, and because we went to a concert, we said, well, this is really important, and next week it will be the Coldplay with their 4 concerts.
Yeah, Glockenwise on one Friday, next Friday Coldplay. Yeah.
And mainly Glockenwise.
Yeah. It's for those who don't know, it's a Portuguese band, indie band. Yeah. So now that we know each other a little bit better, let's try to understand how can we get that release that we've been preparing for the last 2 weeks and make it appear in the press or make it play on the radio or in clubs or wherever. And I'd like to start with you both, Janelle and Melissa. What do you think is the biggest challenge for you to get a known artist to get noticed?
Do you want to start?
An unknown artist.
And then what's the biggest challenge? You have some artists that made a release during this seminar, and now no one ever heard of him, and now you're supposed to promote him. What's the biggest challenge? How can you make him noticed?
All of it. It's really, really hard. There isn't a set way of doing things. My way would be to listen to the record and see who I think from my contacts would like it and help them put together the best way to present themselves and work around the concept and to put together a story and put that out there. And then it's just a lot of legwork.
So concept, work out a story, so that you have some sort of,
so
package that you can send.
There's an idea that to put it in a way that people can latch onto. Like, what's the hook? Why should this have your attention out of the thousands and thousands and thousands of other releases coming out this week?
Yeah.
There's so much music being made. And it's very hard, and I get myself in trouble a lot by saying that not everyone deserves PR. But it's true. Not everything can be written about. Not everyone has something to say, which sounds horrific when I say it out loud. But it's true. There isn't any guarantees in press. I can't force you to like a record and play it on the radio.
Yeah.
I can't force you to listen to a record and write about it. Ultimately, it comes down to something that sparks interest. Whether it's your friend telling you you should like it, or you seeing someone who you respect on Bandcamp buying it, or, you know, you look at the artwork and think, that's crazy. What does the music sound like? You know, there's so many things that can draw people in. The same way as a listener, it's the same for a journalist, and there just isn't a right way of doing it. There isn't a set way, and especially when you're working with like new emerging artists, it can be really hard.
Yeah. So
sorry to like be depressing.
Janelle.
Maybe for this I can take a bit of the artist's perspective. Yeah, I think, as Melissa said, it's super difficult to land spots, especially on, you know, more popular places, I guess, especially with, I mean, I can talk about the UK, because recently there's been a lot of layoffs, so a lot of journalists have been laid off. There's been the whole AI situation as well, but we won't get into that one.
Oh, please do.
I mean, you know, journalists are facing a lot of issues at the moment because there's this fear that they're going to get replaced by AI, and it's a real fear.
I haven't tried to ask AI to write a review on a record, but now you're giving me ideas. I've asked AI. I've asked to write a short story, and it actually did, and it was not that bad. But I never asked you to write a review. Maybe.
Yeah. There's been like certain companies that have been replacing certain types of, you know, journalists with ChatGPT, but so there's a bit of an issue with that. So that plus the, you know, for PR agents, I can only imagine how stressful it is, you know, to contact journalists. To contact journalists that are on the way out, basically, you know. So I guess from an artist's perspective, maybe start local, contact the smaller blogs and people who run certain playlists, maybe, you know, because I guess even in terms of, you know, search engine optimization, even if people look up, I don't know, your name on Google, and at least they see something, even if it's from a, you know, smaller local journal, it's better than having nothing. And then you can graduate to having a PR agent. So I think going to a PR agent from the get-go might not be the best idea, unless you obviously, you know, are supported by a label or whatever. So start local, contact the smaller press outlets, or maybe a friend of a friend or of a friend or whatever, use your contact, and then eventually graduate to having someone like Melissa on your team. It would make her life easier as well.
Start small then. Start small.
Also local radio.
Yeah.
Really good.
Not in Portugal.
No?
No, because, you know, I don't know what's happening in other countries, but in Portugal most radios, even local radios, are heavily formatted, so you have a playlist, very strict playlist scheme, and there's no place to, it's very hard for even, and in the biggest Portuguese radio stations actually don't play indie music, independent releases, and most of the times they don't even play Portuguese music.
What do they play?
Oh, Ed Sheeran,
Okay.
and stuff like that. I don't know. Yeah, that's stuff. So now this perspective of the journalists. What makes you? What is it that grabs your attention, Mário, when you? I mean, do you write about what you don't already know? Yeah, and what makes you write about a band that you've never heard of, a new artist?
Well,
is it the press release?
The answer is the true answer is the music.
But to get to listen to the music, I mean, you receive loads of, you don't receive records anymore because now it's all a link to Bandcamp or whatever, or
mainly. But I try to listen most of them. But of course, as Melissa was saying, be careful with what you write when you are presenting the things to journalists, because I get some press release that I know the band won't be good. I don't need to listen to it because
it's
very
just
badly written. Very
yeah,
well
but that's,
presented. I mean,
but that's
it's
kind of
impossible to
unfair.
dismiss it
You
as
can
good.
have a good band with a bad press release. It
No,
shouldn't happen. But
Never happened. Never happened. If it's really bad, badly written, it doesn't tell a lot about music. Lots of cliches. You know, it's bad.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't need to listen to it. But
Yeah.
it's the. I mean, it's the music. You try to listen to it, and very important is to be where the music happens. Go to see some
Yeah.
concerts. There were lots of times that I saw. You were talking about Glockenwise. First
Yeah,
time
yeah.
I saw Glockenwise, they were presenting the first record. I haven't heard the record yet, and someone told me, you should come and see these guys. And I went, and in the end of the evening, I was so happy about what I had seen that I spent half of the night shouting to their ears, "You're the best band in the world right now, best band in the world."
And then they were the cover of the.
No.
Not immediately, but eventually they ended up on the cover.
So it's the music, mainly how to get to the music. Of course, there are lots. I mean, we get dozens of press releases and links to hear every day, and so in the last like 10, 15 years, it happens to me something that it didn't happen before. There are some things that I miss. I mean, like only in the second record or some months after the record comes out, I'm like, oh, but these guys are really good. Why did I miss it? And I miss it because it's too much.
Yeah.
But what grabs your attention is the same as it was before.
You were
music.
talking about, going out and trying to check the bands live or whoever, or the producer or the DJs. That's easy to do if you're trying to follow the Portuguese scene.
Yeah.
You're a Portuguese journalist. It's kind of hard if you're dealing with international music. So when and that happens. We know that happens every once in a while. That comes a record from out of nowhere. No one ever heard anything about that artist, whatever. And then it's a brilliant record and everybody falls in love with it. But someone
Heard it first.
Someone has to hear it first so that the word can start to spread. And sometimes it seems that that first person, that patient zero that gets in contact with the record, it's the hardest one. How is it with you, Derek? How is it that what makes you write about what makes you go and listening to music from an artist you never heard of?
Yeah, I mean, there's quite a few things I have in my head as a kind of checklist for when I'm reading about something. One thing I really appreciated when I started at The Wire is the two people who kind of mentored me most, which is Chris Bonn and Tony Harrington. They tried to get me to look beyond just the issues of whether I thought something was good or bad, because that's my kind of subjective feeling. And so it was maybe like 4 or 5 things I have in my head when I'm kind of looking at something to try and think of if I think it's worth covering. I try and think about, well, is it good or bad? But also just like, are they doing something which is quite unusual or I don't feel other people have done? Do I think it's innovating in any way? I try and think about the approaches, the kind of methods which the musicians are using. Are they using methods of making music which are unusual or, unfashionable or interesting to me? And I also just try and think about the kind of concept and story behind it. Is it bringing in something else, whether it's politics or aesthetics or something like that? Is there other things attached to it which are kind of interesting? And if something kind of ticks 2 or 3 of those boxes, I'll kind of maybe read on and start listening. We've covered stuff which from big labels, but we've covered stuff which has just been like a download from one person, and we've done big reviews on that. We try and we cover all kinds of things from all kinds of people, released in all kinds of ways. And usually where it starts is kind of like the personal connection. You read an email and you just have a feeling that they kind of understand understand something about maybe our magazine or our approach to music, you feel like they get it, you know. That's kind of a bad answer in a way, but I read what people say, and yeah, often it really starts with this kind of personal connection that you can tell that they have something to say which our readers might respond to. Yeah.
So now I'm curious to know if you've ever, been approached by people who have nothing to say, as Melissa was telling us about. Some people don't have nothing to say. Have you been sent records that, are just flat on the message side?
I suppose, some which have been like, had nothing to say, but like were really banging, or, the music just talked for itself, or the music had a life and personality of its own. Yeah, sometimes, yeah. And that's kind of another fascinating conversation. If even the person knowing it doesn't know why it's so good, that's kind of appealing as well. All kinds.
Yeah, The Wire, as the magazine is known for having quite a wide range of interests and a very serious and deep observation of what's been happening with music. And
sometimes
you have special readers, or else you'd still be here after 40 years, dealing with the kind of music you've been dealing in. Yeah, you're independent at heart, or at least underground, let's say, left field, whatever. So I'd like to ask a question that's more like a provocation, but I think you're in a special place to answer about it. Then I'm sure Mário has something to say about it, as well as Melissa and Janelle. But do you think the written press still matters in 2023?
100%. I think it matters more than, last 10 years ago, 10 years ago, there seemed to be, to me, a much more active kind of ecosystem of blogs and online music writing. And I think that has actually, it seems less visible now, because blogs and other forms of discussion like that seem to have gone towards social media in particular. And also, of course, as we know, sadly, we don't want journalists to go out of a job. Lots of online publications have gone down. And I think I do find artists, as much as ever, and maybe more than maybe 10 years ago, still really seem to want a sort of sense of kind of validation from a listener that someone is taking them seriously, and that they think, and that we think that they are doing something which has something new to say. Of course, I'm going to say this because I edit a music magazine, but yeah, I do more than ever, actually. I think that actual print publications which have endured have a certain sense of, a privileged position, but also have a platform which they can actually talk about stuff which has something interesting to say and some innovation which it's making, yes.
Melissa, you were, nodding in acceptance, so...
Well, I think there's a permanence with print press that's really still has a lot of value, especially with the more boutique stuff, and also long-running things like The Wire. Like, to have that, it kind of is a seal of approval for a lot of people, in the same way as, like, people still put a lot of value into having their music pressed onto vinyl, even though it makes no ecological or financial sense. People still hang on to this physical product, and print press is part of that physicality. And you, like I said earlier, that if you find yourself in a feature in The Wire or some other great magazine, you might still be there 10 years later in someone's house. it's a collecting thing as well, and I think that has value, as well as the standard of journalism being quite high in a lot of these magazines. And
do you think it's higher on the printed press than
I mean, there's great online magazines, so no, and there's lots of journalists work across like online and print. It's there's something about paper, and having an amazing photo shoot for an artist in a really good magazine is something very special that not everyone has, and I'm always happy for my artists when that happens.
Yeah, I'm very happy with your optimism as a journalist. Janelle, what do you have to say about the printed press? And
I think I agree with what they're saying with the aspect of the collectibles, and what you said about vinyl especially. I think like with a lot of things, like there's a history repeating itself situation with trends and with the music industry in particular. So I think having something physical is kind of also a bit of a validation for artists as well. It's a bit of a milestone. So and it also extends the story if you have like photo shoots and stuff like that. So what we talked about, branding and stuff, you can really showcase what all aspects of the artist, what the artist is about when you have a long read or a photo shoot as well.
So do you keep the reviews on your band?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, makes sense. Mário, it's kind of strange for us to be talking in English about this stuff, but so that we can be understood. You know very well that the Portuguese music press has been in downhill, has been going downhills in
like
the past.
Like all printed press.
Yeah. Like all printed press, but especially, you write in the only weekly cultural supplement these days, because, we cannot say that Revista do Expresso is like a cultural supplement, because they also have articles on politics. And you still have the space to write about music, but do you feel it still matters?
I think it still matters. I guess. I mean, the sales of the printed press, are going down every year. But what I think is that it won't go away. Since we've been listening to for 20 years, it will disappear. Paper will disappear. It never happens. The same with books. People said everybody would stop reading books. Not true. It's going dead.
Vinyl was dead, remember?
Vinyl was dead, yeah.
Cassettes were dead. Who wants cassettes?
Yeah. But I think we'll reach a point when there will be this more constant number of readers that will remain. Hopefully, in the future, will grow. But I think it will never go away. The printed press and the need of the reader to have the paper on its hands, like we were saying, and I guess it's important for the physical aspect, almost in a collector item. In my experience in Público and Ípsilon, the fact is the two things go hand in hand. The online version and the. Do
you have numbers? There are lots of people paying for the fee to read online, because we cannot read the Ípsilon the articles online without paying.
No, we don't know. I don't have those numbers. The administrators have them. But, I don't have. We just know that on Fridays the numbers are. The numbers go up. Are better, and that the cultural section in Ípsilon are really important for the newspaper. But for me as a reader, is important. I keep on buying magazines and Expresso to read the magazine also. And I see people around me who are interested in music. And they also like to buy their wires, their mojo, their cats, and so on. So I guess the problem is that we know that there's a crisis in the printed press, and the fact is we have this mythical golden past that kind of over us. So we are thinking of the 70s and the 80s, New Musical Express, Melody Maker.
Back in the day,
it was really, really important in a way that it is not now.
Yeah.
I mean, we now is not. It doesn't happen that you make a cover of a band and they are on top of the table.
You don't make it happen just because you're on the cover of any magazine. But
that
the problem makes a
nowadays.
difference for the artists that appear on the cover of The Wire. It probably it's a bit different for the artists that appear on the cover of The Wire. It really makes a difference to be on the cover of your magazine.
Yeah, I think so. It can, I think, change the perception of an artist quite a lot. It can make people understand that there's, creative ideas behind an artist which can be moved from music to, other art forms. It can really, what I'm saying is, it can really highlight someone as being a creative person in their own right, who, if they're doing creative music now, if they're doing creative things now, they'll probably still be doing it in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. 30 years from now, they might not be doing music. They might be doing like a VR environment with kind of, AI-generated music. I don't know. But at the same time, if they're doing interesting things now, they probably will still be doing later. Just on a purely practical level, it can really help people in terms of an artist might be more recognised as being like someone who might be worth kind of engaging with for, artistic grants, artistic commissions and so on. Yeah, I mean, the first cover story I ever did for The Wire when I just joined The Wire was on on the grime artist Wiley, who's now somewhat disgraced, but was a great innovator in terms of.
Hey, he's disgraced now. Tell me about what happened.
Yeah, there was he made lots of racist anti-Semitic comics.
It happened a lot with the grime scene.
Maybe I couldn't comment on that, but this artist did. But yeah, I had like a real burning desire to try and translate the extremely exciting underground music I was hearing all the day on pirate radio and trying to put it in some wider kind of cultural context to indicate that this was really, really exciting, completely original music which hadn't been done before, and put that in a wider cultural context. And I think I think and hope that artists will always care about that.
Yeah, it makes a difference. I was asking this question also because last week at one of the, the roundtables, the one with José Moro was here with us, and Matt Black from Ninja Tune was here also, and they were discussing, the independent releases and independent labels. And he said along the conversation, he said something like, we should be discussing TikTok because that's where music is, being sold these days. And I really would like to know your opinion on that, because if we're talking about independent music and we're talking about, making music available on TikTok, which is a huge platform, international. I don't think we could call it independent. I'm not sure. And so, how is it? Is it true? I mean, the new generation, kids today are probably much more interested in, in watching videos on Reels and TikTok or something than in reading a magazine. If they're kids, I mean, probably older, younger adults, maybe they're more into reading, but kids are into social media. But does the independent scene has to go into these mainstream social media platforms? Does it have to go, or should it go and make use of the instrument that it is and take the profit that it can? What do you think about it?
Mário? I mean, I could sort of say, that's really complex. I mean, we I don't think we've ever covered something which was just specifically TikTok. We covered something which is. Yeah, maybe we did a big essay. We did a huge feature on sea shanties about 10 years ago. Often the wire is just like we're too early and we don't make any money from selling the feature early. But we do stuff from just like YouTube, things which are just on YouTube. But it's super complex because we don't, if something is just on Spotify, it's quite unlikely. Well, it could be covered by us, but it doesn't happen that often. We don't find our writers kind of that engaged with it somehow if it's only restricted to a fairly corporate platform. So that's it's quite a complex question to answer. We gravitate to stuff which is more in an ecosystem of independent platforms, really. We'll cover, dozens of things which are on Bandcamp every month, but maybe less more corporate platforms.
Yeah, like Spotify. Melissa, what do you think? Would you get one of your artists on? How do you put an artist on TikTok?
I don't know.
How do you?
I think they just make an account. Or
No. How do you make it viral? How do you
get?
Apparently,
make it with a cat or a dog in it. I was having a lovely chat with the editors of Playful magazine, and they were showing me their TikTok account, and they have. They had a dog. They have a very beautiful dog, and the dog went viral. And there are many videos and like fan accounts for their dog. People doing sock puppet videos, the whole works. So, and they're a music and kink magazine. But the biggest thing is their dog. I just think that artists should cover all their bases. So if TikTok's where you're going to find your audience, why not? I wouldn't necessarily work with someone just because they came to me and told me that they went viral on TikTok, because that's just not my bag. But I think that everything has value in social media. It's all toxic. It's all got to be treated well. And if by reaching an audience you have to do all the different channels, then I think that's something artists should consider. But it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily for everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know if that
Janelle. TikTok.
Not much to add, I guess. I guess it depends on the kind of audience that you want to attract as well. I mean, with TikTok, obviously there are different niches. I guess rather than trying to go wide, it's important to know who your audience are and to really target, if you're using TikTok, that specific niche. Yeah, but it's a very complex issue. It's a very complex situation because, it's very polarizing. Like, some people love it and they say that, it made their career happen, basically. And other people, absolutely hate it and are still successful, or they're not on social media and they're still... So, it really depends on the luck of the draw sometimes, I guess, and how... really studying what type of audience you have and what platforms they're likely to be on, I guess. So
there was a time when there were a lot. There was a time when there were a lot of major artists kind of being forced onto TikTok, like Charlie XCX and people like that, and they reacted very badly to it. And I don't think it really hurt their careers in any great way. So, but I don't think anyone should be forced to do anything, because I mean, the conversations are we're trying to have a viral moment. What does this mean even? I find it a bit awkward.
Yeah, that viral talk, it's getting a bit infectious, and nobody really knows how to do it. It's it went viral.
Because
what's that?
It's chance a lot of the time.
Yeah.
And I mean, to be honest, TikTok changed their algorithm, because at the beginning and during the pandemic, it was a case, you had a bigger chance of going viral, apparently, but I guess because of the stuff with the US, that the US might ban TikTok all of that political stuff, there have been changes to the algorithm, so it's actually got harder for people to go viral without, putting ad spend behind it. So now it's kind of, if you keep chasing trends, it's a toxic cycle. So that's why I'm like, see where your audience is at, I guess, see where they, which space they occupy, whether that's in real life or virtual, and just honing on that, I guess.
Mário, what's your thoughts on TikTok?
I only understand what it is. I don't have any social media apart from Instagram, so that I'm not very. I know it's important, but I'm not into it. And the idea of TikTok, for what I gather, it seems to promote this kind of narcissistic worldview that seems to be something to fight against. Let's go to the let's end capitalism that we were talking at the beginning, and so. I mean, I suppose it's interesting for the musicians to promote their music, but I never heard music that got viral through TikTok. That seemed interesting to me. I mean, there are different realms of music and different kinds of people doing music and. I mean, it might be interesting or important for someone that wants to promote itself and that music in a certain kind of way. But I find it more similar to the TV programs for creating idols than something connected to what music can be and the change it can bring to culture. It seems to me less about music and more about celebrity. But as I said in the beginning, I hardly understand what it is.
No, don't worry. You have a kid in 2 or 3 years. Your kid, well, kid will.
I thought of a good example. Yeah, I think with TikTok, as you guys are mentioning, it's also about sustainability. So if you go viral, are you gonna have a long-term career with one song? I think a good example is Ray. I don't know if you've heard of her. But yeah, she was basically signed to a major label for like 7 years and they never let her release an album. Then she went independent. She went public about it, basically how this label had treated her. And probably her marketing team, I don't know, they might have paid influencers, I mean, because that's something else. But yeah, one of her songs, which is quite an unusual pop song, actually went viral. And off the back of that, she released an album independently, and I think it was a #1 album in the UK. It's really good. She's an excellent artist. So yeah, I guess if you have a long-term plan and one song happens to go viral, you need to sustain that. In her case, she had like hundreds of songs written, so thankfully through that one viral song, a lot of people discovered how amazing she is. But yeah, if you're an artist just starting out and accidentally a song goes viral, that can be detrimental as well to your mental health.
So maybe it's not accidental when it goes viral.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, there are a lot of things in the back. But in her case, I was actually really happy for her because I've been following her for a while and she deserves it.
Yeah, just the hypothesis that you were saying that maybe the label or
she
people,
created her own label.
Maybe they paid some influencers to make it viral. If it gets to that, I mean, it's another layer of complexity.
Yeah, it is. The influencer thing is another layer of complexity because, I mean, it's not a secret that people, like major labels, they pay influencers to, use that song on TikTok. Yeah. So that's a whole other layer of like paid virality, which... Yeah, but again, if someone's like, starting out and I don't know, they're lucky, I guess, or if you call it luck, and their song goes viral on TikTok, and then they can't sustain that. It spells the end of their career, basically. So, yeah, exactly. So maybe it's all about sustainability and having a long-term plan, like playing
if you
the
want to
long
be an
game.
artist and not have just one week and and you know, some people.
I mean,
maybe
if they get
don't have
anything from it, you know,
if
fine.
they make money from one song, maybe they can retire for the rest of the world. But you were saying something that, you know, got me quite curious. Is not, I know artists that are not on social media. Is that true?
Yeah, I mean...
Please, you have to... Sorry, because we're...
Yeah, I mean, there are artists who aren't on social media and, like, they have a cult following or they have a very limited social media presence where they don't even show their face. Like you were mentioning this morning.
Yeah,
so I guess, for example...
never showed their face, but is it... I mean, they also had quite an astonishing press about them, and they created all the
story.
The story. But I would say that it would be really, really hard for an artist
independent artists
not to be on social media. But
if you're supported by a bigger label, even a bigger indie, it is possible. Like there are a couple of bands, to be fair, that I can think of that have a very limited social media presence, but if you have the money, you can do that. But if you're an independent artist and you're doing the legwork, it's quite difficult. As we were talking this morning, I guess it all depends on like your branding in a way. If, you know, part of your brand is being a bit mysterious, maybe you can find a way how to showcase that on your social media platforms without necessarily showing your face or posting your face all the time.
But it still is important to be on social media in some way.
I mean,
in the right way,
unfortunately, I mean, personally, I'm not a big fan of social media, but you have to.
Yeah.
It's a way for people from all over the world to discover you, so it has its pros, you know. But it depends. Yeah, you have to be a bit careful about how to play that game, I guess, so that you don't get overwhelmed or tired or burned out, because it happens very quickly.
Yeah.
I think of quite a lot of I can think of quite a lot of electronic artists who aren't on social media. Like Helena Hauff has no social media.
She has no social media, but she appears from time to time in pictures on Instagram.
No, she'll have pictures taken and stuff, but she doesn't operate any accounts herself, and she's like fully independent. Ricardo Villalobos, although there are many pictures.
Oh, well, I don't think Ricardo can complain about not being on social media.
There are definitely in the electronic scene like people who don't show their face, who don't have social presence, but they have great music to back it up, and they either run a great label or they're touring or something. So you have to balance it out. If you don't have those things, then social media has a lot more value, whether that's TikTok or SoundCloud or whatever.
When we were talking about the influencers, I immediately was, in the back of my head, I was saying to myself, The Wire is some sort of influencer. So are you approached in sleazy ways to talk about artists that you don't believe in?
Yeah, I'm sure we have been. I mean, often it will be people who kind of don't really, maybe aren't that acquainted with what we do. I mean, I just sort of step back at this moment, maybe, and sort of I'd say that, you know, what we try and do at The Wire is like really, almost all of it is just from the solid principles of journalism. At least we try. We might get it wrong, but we try and make it from the solid principles of journalism. So what is going on, you know, how are they doing it, why are they doing it? And so a lot of things like influencers and maybe people's brands as well, we really, you know, if I was to sort of take you to like a Wire editorial meeting, it is really just, you know, a group of us sitting in a room kind of chatting with each other, asking each other's questions, just trying to get to the heart of, and this is the heart of it, is there a story here? And I know we're talking about music, obviously, but I still think there's like, you know, the question can still be an interesting one. Is there a story here? You know, are they using their music in an interesting way? Are they engaging with their audience in an interesting way? So lots of these things we actually kind of have to try and sort of strip back, you know, influences, hype, and we might get things right or we might get it wrong, but we are sort of really serious about this. It has to be like journalism. So there's some concepts which don't really engage with the wire. You know, we don't try and engage with hype. We don't engage with any notion of cool. We're always just trying to look, for better or worse, of is there a good story here?
So The Wire is kind of like a nightmare, Melissa.
Yeah, sorry, Melissa.
No, I love The Wire. The Wire is one of the few magazines that I subscribe to and have done for many, many years, keeping you afloat. And you make it look effortlessly cool by not worrying about the cool stuff.
Yeah.
No, I mean, The Wire is a magazine that is not easy to pitch to, and I respect that. Like, I'm very careful about what I take to Derek. I maybe only pitch to him 2 or 3 times a year.
That's a good policy.
Yeah, because it has to be worth it. Like, I don't want to waste anyone's time, and I know the kind of things that they will like because I read the magazine, and yeah, so.
So when Derek was talking about there has to be a story, you know, the music is obviously, you know, the main ingredient, but you have to have, if you have a concept, if you have a story. So when you have an artist that has a concept, or, you know, something that sustains the music that you think, oh, this is like something I can take to the wire, or is it just because of the music?
I mean, both, but if I just think it's a good record that there's nothing else to tell about it, this is what I'm talking about also, like, storytelling is important. Like, there's no point in me going to him with something, even if, say it's just a very simple, great record, that's not enough. But if it's then connected to a wider scene where there's loads of people suddenly making this amazing music, like Grimes, then I would maybe go to him with that. Or I have an artist that has like a lot more to say. Like I pitched Chris Corder to him last week because
she has a new record, right?
She does. She's got lots of new records. Yes, tomorrow. Okay, next week. So this is someone that I think she should be covered now because now's the right time. There's many reasons why I think that she's important, apart from the fact that she makes great music. But we're in a place in society where everything she's done to this point suddenly makes sense.
Yeah, Church of Euthanasia can be quite provoking stuff. Yeah, but
exactly.
yeah.
But I wouldn't actually probably pitch to you because I don't think that your newspaper would cover her because of the Church of Euthanasia. But I think that, and because this makes her music difficult to digest and her personally.
Yeah,
and I understand that, and I understand that she's blacklisted in certain places because of the Church of Euthanasia.
Really? She's really blacklisted because of that?
The Guardian.
Oh, really? Because
yes.
of the Church of Euthanasia?
Yes, because of things that happen. Which
I'll get into that.
But but so mainstream media, they are not going to cover an artist like that. But I absolutely would expect that we can find a place for an artist like that somewhere like The Wire. Okay. There's always an option of where to take an artist and where to take their story. But it is more than. The music is the most important thing. That's what I make my decisions of how I'm going to work with someone, if I'm going to work with someone. But then also the story and everything behind it, the communities that people represent. Like, this is also really important, and that's what journalists find interesting to write about. Like, otherwise it's...
Yeah. So it's interesting that you're talking about Chris Corder. She's a trans woman and she's a brilliant producer, very out of the box. She develops her own software, and she's kind of, a cultural, underground cultural icon these days because of everything. And when you were telling about the story and the concept, and you gave her as an example, I immediately thought, is this the right story for now? Or does this mean that other stories are not as important as the stories like Chris Cord. I mean, gender issues and political issues are the main thing right now, the hottest.
Shouldn't write about only what's hot though.
I mean, hot is not. I shouldn't have said hot. It's kind of like I'm saying it's cool. It's not what I mean. Are these the urgent issues that are happening in music and that musical journalism should be talking about?
There's some of them. Yeah. We've had a lot more trans artists in the wire recently than maybe before. Although we had a trans woman, Terry Temlitz, on the cover in around 1998, something like that. I think one big change, maybe in music magazines, but just generally in society, more generally, is just people, I think, do want more representation and more stories from different areas of society in general. And for instance, so there's some really, really interesting, dance music being made in East Africa at the moment, in Uganda and Kenya and other places. And we can maybe try and get someone from that area to write about that music rather than someone based in London writing about that music. And I think one thing the internet did do, which was, I think kind of good, also like opening Pandora's box, very unpredictable but very exciting, like all unpredictable things, is to have just a wider range of people writing about their own, personal experiences and perspectives from all over the world, rather than just a limited number of journalists in English-speaking countries writing about them. And so extend that to trans issues as well. We have trans writers, we have people writing about all kinds of scenes from all kinds of perspectives, and it's a good, exciting change.
Representation. So would you say it's one of the...
I think it's been a change I think all of us can see over the last 15, 20 years, and it's a whole new, brave, exciting world.
Mário, being a Portuguese journalist, how do you feel that reflects on the Portuguese reality? Do you think that at Ípsilon, for instance, where you write every Friday, do you have that kind of talk and that kind of preoccupation in representation? And
of course, geographically the world got bigger, and our concerns about the people that inhabit it in our societies also grew and are more visible, and things are discussed, rightly so. And of course that reflects on the music that is being made, that reflects on the things that are being said through music, that addresses lots of important questions that we face today. Obviously, in the last 15 years, and as Derek was saying, the huge predominance of music coming from the UK and United States, which, I mean, if we listen to music from abroad, it would be from England or United States. Like that changed a lot in the last 15 years, and of course it's better that way. And of course the same with people that write about it. The only concern that I have, and I don't see it reflected on Ípsilon, but sometimes I fear that some cultural movements or cultural creations are being addressed just because of the discourse that's behind the narrative that's behind the work of art. And that's when that happens, he can work against against the good fight. Let's say it. I remember recently. A friend of mine was in, I guess it was in the Côte d'Ivoire, the Costa de Marfim, and she was there in a gallery, and with the owner of the gallery was half French, half from Ivoire, and they were discussing. I mean, there was lots of Portuguese African artists. The issues of colonialism, racism was being usually discussed, and that was beginning to be much more visible in Portugal and abroad than in previous years. And she reacted saying, "Yeah, that's a problem. That's a problem because lots of artists and gallery owners." They know that if they book some artists that will address those issues, they will have an audience. The conscience of the gallery owners will will become a little more less heavy, and even the artists. And she was talking about artists from her country and
Africa.
Yeah, they were. She said that they were feeling the pressure to
address those issues.
Yeah, and that could be a bad thing. But but I mean, this is a small thing in the big important thing that is the fact that this is discussed, and of course we have to address it. Talking about music, because music addresses those questions.
Maybe sometimes some people, as I think in English there's an expression that probably explains it, that they jump on the bandwagon, and even if they don't have the true beliefs of the causes or the concepts they are trying to defend, they try to take profit out of that narrative without really being true to what they are supposedly being for. Janelle.
But I have to say that I find that in music that doesn't happen in the same way as in the art.
In the art world.
I would say that that's not true. I've got several artists, queer artists, artists from Africa and the Middle East, and they've definitely had the experience of they feel like they have to constantly explain the same thing over and over, and there's only certain things people want to talk about with them, and it's not always the music. It's about their upbringing or how they feel about this and how they feel about that. And they're kind of forced to be spokespeople for things that they don't want to talk about, that actually in many cases might be traumatic for them. And that's actually put off some amazing artists from wanting to engage with the press, where they've had to remove themselves or shut themselves away, or them and their management, we really have to manage what press are allowed to speak to them, because there've definitely been some really sensitive and bad experience, because people are forced to be spokespeople, and I don't think artists should be that unless they want to be that, and that's definitely part of the tokenization of certain things, and the bandwagon jumping, and if we focused on the music more, that would be a lot of them.
I like the tokenization expression. Janelle, you haven't spoke about this. Do you have anything to say?
I mean, I can think of a couple of experiences, to be honest, with people jumping on the bandwagon just to get some hype. But I agree with what you said. I think there needs to be a separation between art and activism, and they're not mutually exclusive. Some people don't. They just want to create art without having to talk about the politics of it all. And I mean, as the world becomes more aware of certain issues, which is obviously a good thing, we also need to be careful about how we address certain issues, and maybe, respect people's position on certain stuff in terms of, if they don't want to be artists and activists, they just want to be artists. You have to be a bit sensitive about that. But,
I don't know if we still have Hugo. Please let me know. We should Keep on keeping on. Okay, so in a moment I'll ask you if anyone has some questions, but I think it's time for me to ask one of the most difficult questions, and I start by asking the question to myself. Enjoy your wine. Which is, how do I relate to the overwhelming quantity of new releases that happen every day? And I personally think it's a problem for me, and I have 3 radio shows, so I really have a lot of space to spread the music I believe in, and I keep forgetting about releases that are sent to me in digital formats, because they get lost on computers and USB pens and hard drives and stuff like that. So I try to keep up with everything that's coming out and everything people send me, and I have this huge frustration because I know I cannot do it. I try, I cannot do it, and it accumulates, and I think it gets to the place where it becomes traumatic, but I don't want to talk about it now because it's not the place. But yeah, I have some difficulty in dealing with the number of the quantity of music that's available these days, and every day there's new music, and if you go on Bandcamp, you have new music from everywhere in the world, and then there's the emails you receive, and then all the other stuff, the other input of the people and people that come up on social media, and they say this record is amazing, and another one for the pile, and 3 months later I have a pile of 200 records I never listened to, and probably that's the record of the year is on that pile, but unfortunately I didn't have the time. So how do you do it, Mário? How if someone is listening to us and they want to send their release, the music they've been making with very love and care, very much, they took their time, they spent their money, they even have a story, a good story, and they send it to us. How do they get noticed? How do you notice
I try
to listen
to
yeah, but if they send you a mail with the link, you listen to the link for sure. What do they have to say?
Yeah, but maybe I wouldn't go there again if he didn't get my attention in some way in that first time. Maybe with a physical record it's different, but well, these days I'm not so I'm not so sure about it. But I mean, it's kind of a weekly angst and anxiety, because I mean, there are lots of things, good things and interesting things happening that I think we should write about and show to our readers, and it's just impossible. And there's no room for no editorial room for it. There's no pages enough for all of that, and there's really too much, and it shouldn't happen because it's my job, so I shouldn't feel kind of lost with all of this. But yes, I feel kind of overwhelmed because it's really too much. As I said in the beginning, sometimes I mean, I go just checking the record of the year list. Yeah. Wow, this is really.
Yeah, that's
really
why
amazing. Maybe this would be my record of the year.
Yeah, my record of the year for the past 5 years. It's been the record from the previous years. So.
But this is something that I mean, I started to feel this. I started to feel this feeling of becoming lost amidst all the things that are being put out. Just talking with friends that I have since my teenage years, and normally when we would be talking about some new records, we would be listening, because we have the same look at music in the same ways. Maybe not same tastes, but we know what interests us in music, and that it's common ground. But it came to a point where we were talking about the new records that we were listening, and no one was talking about the same
record.
records. It was all different records. Now it's the same thing, but multiplied by 1 million.
Yeah.
So there's no, I mean, there's no formula for
So
it. I mean, we live. We know that some things will get lost along the way, lost in my radar. I know, and I have to make peace with that, or else I mean.
So, but is there any special trick that someone can? Is it an email? Is it a box? If it's an email, how should it start? Is it long? Is it short? Because these things are, yeah.
Bring wine.
yeah. Do you like attachments?
Yeah.
Attachments are always a problem. So you should send a link to.
I mean, it can be 3 sentences, and I press the link, and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Great band. It can be a small novel explaining why they made that. And
would you read the small novel?
No, I would start it if it's interesting. Yeah. So that there's really no. I guess there's no formula, because I feel very attached to the physical format. Maybe if I get a CD, I play it a little bit more of a. I look at it with some more attention, but it's so much nowadays that even that it's not guaranteed.
Derek, how about you?
I think if we only listen to the stuff which is kind of brought to us by like email links and recommendations, there's kind of a risk that we can end up kind of just getting trapped, I think, by the kind of weight of stuff. And like I always try and I always find it very important. I kind of, about a year ago, I started deciding that I had to spend more time for proactive kind of discovery. And, a little earlier I was talking about news and like journalism, and, the analogy is like, I try to make sure that I'm not just staying in my office, I'm walking around the neighborhood as well. So I kind of, every day I try and investigate or discover a new label or artist, and I follow like, oh, well, if this person has done something, then they played with this person, so what has that person done, the second person? If it's on this label, what else is on this label? If this person has mastered it, does that mastering person also do music of their own sort, And through this way, like through just proactive kind of following links, I've discovered one new label or artist, not non-English speaking, every day for the last year. So I think proactive listening is really, really important. And I think it's really, really important that, of course we have to check out what's out there, but I think it's really important to have the kind of joy of kind of discovery and investigation in not just journalists, any of us as listeners.
Yeah. But congratulations on having that, that urge to go after. And
it's just more fun, there needs to be some fun. There needs to be some fun and some kind of idea of kind of investigation in journalism. Otherwise, it becomes like a robot.
Yeah, you just write about that. Melissa, so is there any trick to get the attention? We've talked about the story and all that, but sending pictures, sending picture or sending, because these are the type of questions that artists that are starting out sometimes, put to themselves if they don't have a PR agent or anyone, telling them how to do stuff. But if you write an email to a journalist or whatever, should you send what type of information?
It depends on what it is and who I'm approaching. You're talking about the overwhelming amount of music, and that kind of like gives me a bit of a cold sweat. And I understand that as well. I'm working with a lot of music, and one of the reasons why, like, if I send a personal email to someone about something, I'm not wasting my time and I'm not wasting their time. I value everyone's time, and so I'm doing it with intention because I think they'll like it. But obviously that's me and my relationships with people. There's no set way that I would do that really. Sometimes I do literally send one sentence like, I think you're going to love this, like have a listen. And then I'll come back to them in a couple of weeks. A lot of times we'll be having a conversation about something else and I'll end it with, you might like this as well. And most of the time all I'm doing is giving them the music. I'm not giving them some spiel. Other times I might feel the need to do a full pitch, but that will be like at the beginning of a campaign or something. Me personally, when someone sends me music, I will quickly scan whatever information they've sent me. If they send me too much information, I might just delete it because I can't like deal with it. And then I kind of listen like a DJ. Like I will skip through something first, and then if I hear something, I will go back and listen in full, which is a bit brutal, but that's literally how I learned to like quickly go through music. Like you skip through it, like 15 seconds. That's you know, I'm a vinyl person.
We call it pica-montinhos. It's like you put a needle. In Portuguese we have a word. It's technically pica-montinhos. It's like I don't know how I can. It was Miguel Esteves Cardoso. It was a music journalist, one of the mythical music one of the few mythical music journalists in Portugal, Miguel Esteves Cardoso, that actually has a book on reviews that he wrote in the late 70s, early 80s, and he explains this technique. It's the pica-montinhos, and where you put the needle on one track and then you lift it and put it on the other track and then you lift it and put it on the other track, and that's how you listen to a record.
Exactly. Well, I do that with digital and with vinyl, and I think a lot of people do. That's it just comes down to the spark. Like, I mean, I listen pretty much all day, every day, except when I'm writing, and then it's like noise cancelling headphones. And I tend to listen it for my own personal pleasure. I listen to the same stuff over and over again. I'm like an obsessive listener for certain things. But yeah, that's just me.
Thank you. Janelle, what about you?
Trying to think about what hasn't been said. I guess when, approaching PR people and journalists, it's important to treat them with respect, I guess. Do not try to reach out. I saw something that a DJ in the UK, someone gave out his number and people were messaging Jack Saunders apparently. So I think that would get you blacklisted immediately. I guess try to engage with the publication that you want to be in terms of social media, and kind of know about have a read through about what they cover before like doing a blanket pitch. Be a fan of that publication or that blog, and I think mentioning like previous stories and linking them up to your music helps, because it shows that you're actually interested in what they're doing and you're a fan of their work. Having a good press kit as well, even when approaching PR agents, doing that yourself. There are a lot of templates online that you can basically doing a bit of the legwork before pitching, so that people don't get overwhelmed, because journalists and DJs are people after all. So.
And they get overwhelmed.
So
I would, if there's anyone who wishes to make any comments or ask some questions, I think it's about time, unless any of you wants to, bring up any subject that has not been approached yet, and you feel it's important. Derek, you look like you have something. Please speak up.
If I thought for a few minutes.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions or any comments, we'd love to.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I have a question for Derek. You were mentioning that you're doing that work of going out and finding out new things. I was curious about where are you looking for those novelties? Where are you looking for those different things that are outside your bubble? Yeah.
Discogs and Bandcamp.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Short and sweet.
yeah, maybe that's a little bit unfair because obviously there'll be things not represented there, like on net labels and stuff. But I think a lot of artists and labels maintain their discogs quite well. So if I find an interesting record label, often I'll be able to find a lot of credits and information and connections via discogs, and that might lead me to a new artist or a new label. Yeah, it is quite a short answer actually. Yeah.
Yeah, no, makes sense. Thank you. I was just wondering if you had any other methods. Yeah. Cool. No further questions.
Don't be shy. You can make your pitch.
First, I have a question for everyone, but then I have quite a few questions for Derek, which is a bit unfair, but that's how it is. Okay, question for everyone. What do you all think about this kind of, I will not say a trend, but an issue that a lot of the current press releases and a lot of current reviews are sort of blurring into each other, and sometimes I really don't know if I'm reading a review or a press release. And I'm someone who is, for example, both artist, publisher, a writer, used to be writer, not, but I'm subscribed to the AVEIRO for 20 years, blah, 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 whatever. So, and I don't think there's overwhelming amount of music. For me, it's not enough ever. I don't agree with any of your, we cannot cope with this. By the way, Tiana says hi to Melissa. She booked you for the Share conference in Belgrade. I'm her colleague for 20 years. So this is the question for everyone, this kind of press release review, because I know some writers, I don't write anymore, but I read their pre-sent stuff sometimes, and I'm like, this doesn't give me any idea of the record. It tells this story about someone who is pushing some narrative. Yes, it's fine. I like the narrative, no problem. But I don't know what it is. Like, how does it sound like? Or something completely different, like random, just some information that might be super geeky about particular something, out of context, no context. So that's a question for everyone. And then for Derek, because I come from ex-journalist background, which I had to quit. I had to choose a side. I could not ever handle the double life that some people are able to handle. So I had to quit my journalist approach, but then I was fighting for some journalist rights and journalist codex. So I lost one friendship because someone from the Wire magazine DJ'd at the event that was reviewed in that magazine by that person, not stating that the person was DJing at the event. By the lack of event, I know that the organization wanted to push this achievement of the event being featured. Paid Facebook post, which I just commented, oh yeah, okay. They put the comment down, and I lost actually 2 friendships because of this, but I had to do it. So there's this whole kind of historical, because I worked on both sides at the festivals and in the media and the artists, that journalists are being sent to kind of cover an event, maybe for the buyer, but the event has to pay them. So yeah, that's one thing. And the other thing, which I find even more problematic, is that do all the writers of the Wire have the access to the online archive? And if they don't, why not?
Okay. Why? Our writers do have access to our online archive. Yeah, most of the time. Most of the time, maybe not all the time. If it's, for instance, a new writer, maybe we might not have given them an access yet, but they do generally, and hopefully that helps them kind of understand some of the history, but it's not always a perfect system. sorry, could you explain again the unfortunate situation with like losing friendships and what caused that?
I mean, someone had to write the letter to the editor that the situation is explained. In the end, it was written in the letters to the editor that it happened as a situation. So, but it took some time of negotiation, how it will be handled, and yeah, it's. I would just like an opinion on that. How far is this allowed? Because I know the Guardian writers who review big festivals and they DJ the same festivals, and it's somehow okay.
Oh, conflict of interest.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay. Yeah, we definitely avoid in most cases, well, you know, we try and, you know, have an informal editorial, well, quite formal maybe editorial rule that if you're collaborating or appearing at a festival that you wouldn't review it. You know, maybe at some time in the past it might have happened, that may have happened, but we do actively try and avoid that because, yeah, if I was to review this event in The Wire, I would be quite likely to say I thought it was good, and I have maybe personal relationships which would feel awkward. So, yeah, we do try and avoid that. I suppose kind of the more general case with those kind of things is sometimes you have unusual situations where you might have a very underground event, or you might have an event in a very unusual like location, which is, you know, and you might have someone, maybe someone writes about an event who might be friends with people in that scene who also are involved in putting an event on. But sometimes with The Wire, we do find that, you know, sometimes scenes are very small. Sometimes really exciting scenes are very small, or unique scenes are very small. And then in a small town or small area, often everyone knows each other. And so a friend of a friend might be the person putting on the event, if you see what I mean. But sometimes I suppose we have the decision about whether to cover something or not cover it, and, you know, someone might end up writing about something which is also part of their, you know, social scene maybe. But we do try and avoid it mostly, and we do kind of actively try and avoid it mostly. I don't know if that kind of answers the question.
Can I also say something about that?
Yeah, sure, and we have another question as well.
Oh yeah. So like conflicts of interest, like most good journalists and most good magazines and newspapers take that very seriously. For instance, there is a journalist who's very important in our scene, who released on a record label that I ran a long time ago. And so he won't write about anything connected to those artists, because he, even 14 years later, would consider that he could be called up and called out for supporting things where he's benefited from. I think the statute of limitations may have run out on that, but he doesn't, and I have to respect that because that's important, and that's part of the editorial direction of the things that he works for.
What was the question was about the press releases. Yeah, Derek, you're already.
Yeah, in both ways. I mean, it's kind of how it reaches me, and I'm subscribed to everything. Like this, especially Bandcamp being a record store, which has like all these features and reviews.
Bandcamp is a record store.
Yeah.
And people forget this, that this is. And I know that they're also moving to Europe because of all this tax bullshit that is happening in double taxation with the US. So it's going to be even more problematic very soon.
I was going to ask, because Janelle's in the band, I was going to ask if Janelle's ever had one of those reviews which you think, oh, it's just a press release review.
Myself,
oh, yeah, like...
Yeah, but that happens in Portugal because you don't have journalists, music journalists writing, and they do take the press release that's been made sometimes by journalists that are working in promotion, and they just copy-paste it.
I think the problem is like when you have like people copy-pasting it on multiple channels. Because if you visit one website, it's the same thing over and over. Yeah, it's a real problem. I mean... Yeah, I guess you have to write a good press release. You have to get someone who knows how to write, I guess, from the get-go. It is an issue.
Someone actually do paste a good press release, and then it becomes the review.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's a problem.
I can tell you that in Portugal that happens, but that's what happens in Portugal. I've been noticing that sometimes when you Google some artist, the first 10 entries tend to have the same text, and that's a bit worrying. But in Portugal, I know that's because of that, and I've taught people to write press releases, and there was this girl that. She counted, she had a diary of the press releases that she wrote that then appeared copy-pasted on several publications online and in the press. And she was happy about it, but she never took any credit. I mean, she received like 50 euros for, writing the press release, and she was happy on seeing people liking what she wrote.
I love it when I see my press releases on Discogs. It makes me really happy.
Yeah, you have...
Especially like the old printed ones. Like
really?
Sometimes you'll see them on Discogs as part of the package, where someone's gone into the record shop and got a promo, and they'll take the photos of everything. It's like an early test pressing, and there's my press release. I'm like,
yeah, you feel happy. I didn't know they did that on Discogs. I thought Discogs people were a little more geeky, and
that's a true geekiness. Like one of the original white labels. Like
yeah, for sure.
Well, I guess that's not so. It's not so different as it was before. I guess now what happens it's more visible.
Yeah.
It's just more visible because you were talking about the 10 entries that they are the same. You can just Google it and you see that, and that effect it's much more evident, visible, than it was before.
I remember the press in the 90s. The reviews were so different.
Yeah.
Use the microphone.
I remember the reviews from the 90s. I was really, like my obsession started then. So I was really, the reviews were completely panned. Like the same album will get 1 star somewhere, 10 stars somewhere. Yeah. This is much less happening nowadays. And I think mostly because of well-written press releases. I mean, that's my kind of, and not only mine. This is like this comes from a small kind of group of people discussing all this. It's not my idea, I have to say. So, but if I just. I'm just going to use this. I'm very sorry to just say to the Wire magazine. I just counted in the last issue. Out of 14 live reviews, 6 were the UK, 5 were London. The others were European Union, Canada, and United States.
Yeah,
that's a responsibility that you somehow have to change. After all this idea that you have the writers from the East, Central Eastern Europe, the going to write more, and I know that you did introduce Lenhard tapes, which come from my country partially because it's other kind of background, minority. But I think it's unacceptable in 2023, and I really read the Wire since '97, subscribed since 2002, that I have to see 4 reviews from Cafe Otto in 1 issue. It's not a London zine, like really. Like why I cannot read what's actually when you cover artists from China, when you cover artists from anywhere in Africa, anywhere out of other continents. I know there are writers there because I follow some of them on Twitter. I know there are people who can write live reviews. Live reviews are the most easy to write. It's like you go, you write it immediately. So I think this is unacceptable in 2023.
No, if the spread is that narrow, yeah, it needs to be wider. Just you couldn't deny that, Maybe a couple of things. I don't know. I mean, we always try and make it wider. My boss Chris is just in China now, writing a review of the really interesting festival in Shenzhen in China. Also, you know, we take writing from people from all around the world who are not journalists kind of actively all the time. Every month I'm looking for people to write from different parts of the world. So, you know, this month we have some interesting stuff from Ukraine. You know, I get, because of email, I can get contacted by people from Georgia, so I'm commissioned something this week from someone from Georgia. So yeah, I mean, we do really encourage people to reach out as well. But yeah, if it's that narrow, it needs to be wider for sure, no question.
Any more questions?
Just ask one last one. It's quick, I swear. Well, just a comment on the same PR situation. I'm an artist here in Portugal, and I get very frustrated by that as well. But I think that comes also from journalists being overworked, because there's so much music coming out right now, and I released an album recently, and everyone was so busy because there were like 10 other albums on the same 2 weeks being released as well. But my next question is for Melissa. So I listened to the live stream this afternoon, and I remember you mentioned that when artists come to you, first listen to the music, but I'm wondering what other things catch your eye when you're trying to decide if you're going to work with an artist or not?
Yeah, so the first place we start is the music, and then after that, it can be lots of things. Like maybe I like something about the story, maybe this time I turn down a lot of work. I have to be completely honest. Probably about at least half of what people who approach me I will say no to for various reasons. So the stuff that we decide to take on, and part of it is that, am I going to do a good job with it? Because people are investing money in this and I don't want to disappoint people. And so I have a fairly good idea of what might work. I'm not always right. Mm-hmm. Can't be right. But so part of it is like, I think I can do a good job with it. That can be a million different things. You just look at my roster, like I have an incredibly broad roster of artists from all over the world working on all different types of music, and there isn't really one thing that connects them. I mean, I like their music. That's actually the thing that connects them. But yeah, there isn't like some magical formula. I mean, I'm probably more responsive to the people who keep it simple, and yeah, the music, and then I can see a way that I can help that person. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have wine? I'm so parched.
Red or white?
White, please. Anyone else?
Yeah.
Okay. Who knew we could order from here?
Hey. We all are heard like your journalists are getting overwhelmed with a lot of music work and a lot of albums that got released every day. But me as a musician, like, nowadays, you have to do the music, you have to view video, Facebook, you have to feed the Tamagotchi. Hey, a picture, hey, I'm eating, oh, I'm recording every second, you have to feed the Tamagotchi. And for me, I hate it.
Yeah.
I would like to be only concentrated in doing music. That's what I love to do it. And, well, I live in Berlin for quite a long time, and even to play live, if you didn't have a few, a certain amount of likes, you wouldn't play. Or you pay to play, which is like, what?
It's still true.
I have to pay.
They actually go on.
Yes, you have to pay the sound engineer. And then it's
but
like,
they count the followers and the likes. They still do that?
I feel like that's less now because it's so fake.
people know it can be gained.
But then
but it's like especially in big cities.
A lot of people
like
who don't
I
know
went to
that.
Berlin like, hey,
It's a lot of
I want to be
competition.
an artist and musician. Blah, blah, blah,
Yeah, everyone's a
And-
DJ.
I lived there 9 years. After 9 years, I'm like, fuck you.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
I mean, I have
Because
similar experience.
Everybody's an artist, everybody's a
Those are the big
musician, and
Yeah.
it's okay. But you don't have any. It's even worse. Like this is my hometown. I'm from AVEIRO, and it's like I feel that I'm going to do art and music. That's the things that I love to do, and I think this is the right place to do it, because if you go to another big city, Paris, whatever,
Yeah.
New York, whatever, it's the competition is much more furious. And it's like, hey, where do we play? Nobody will tell you anything.
But it's not just the competition, it's like the loss of your community, it's the loss of continuity. And like one of the things with Berlin
but me as
is
a
it's full of
musician, I don't
transient
think about
people.
community, and I don't think about how, I think about expressing myself
Yeah.
with bass, that is my instrument. And I have really a lot of problems. Like if it was not for Hugo, I record an album, it would be in the draw, it would not be released. It was
Yeah.
not only released 3 years after it's been recorded and mastered, and 3
wrong
years
with that.
recording and it's like, if it was not for him, I would not release the album.
Mm.
It's like, I don't have the skills, and it's like, for me, my interest is to make music.
Then
It's
that's
not
what
to
you
be,
should do.
oh, Instagram, cheep, and
Yeah.
it's you have a lot of people that make it in the music world, like,
Oh yeah.
and that's, and no, it's like, for me, I don't fit, and I think like. It's hard to explain, but like the music industry, it's like it's the thing, like the thing of putting boxes, like
Yeah.
you do rock or you do jazz or you do whatever, or you do pop, and there's no place to get out of those boxes. It's like you create more boxes, and
Yeah.
now we're reaching to an end that is like, if you don't fit in those boxes, you don't have place, and it's like in the gold age of the 70s, like you have a rich producer, he didn't understand anything about music, but he knows that one of these 5 artists would pay the investment, and he didn't understood anything, and he would bet his money in something that he would not understand.
Mm.
It's crazy as it is, but it
Yeah, it might be an illusion.
I don't know.
People,
But
yeah.
but that was just
Yeah, you are the, you probably are the,
I mean, I can talk a bit on that, yes. I mean, I have a kind of similar-ish experience because I moved to the UK partly to get involved in the music industry. And 3 other members of the band are also from Malta, and I guess coming from the Mediterranean where there isn't, it's even harder to get, and especially a country as small as Malta, there is a very small music scene. It's even harder to cut through the noise. I think what I would suggest is trying to find a community of people within the big city. That's what I found to be helpful, and not to be afraid to reach out to people as well, to ask for help. Sometimes as artists, we're like, I don't know, we don't want to ask for help, we're in our own bubble, little world. But I guess if you reach out to friends, to a community that you're building, I don't know, in a new country or in a new city, that it can take you places, because like that person might know a producer, for example. That producer might know a small label. That small label might know some funding opportunity. So I guess, as much as we hate it, we have to reach out, and we have to try and make space for ourselves in, And that's the reality, It's like the long game. I mean, with social media, we see quick wins, people becoming successful overnight, but behind that overnight success is years and years and years of work. So yeah, I can understand that experience perfectly, though, of going to a new city with a lot of dreams, but then realizing that you have to do 4 jobs, you know, to do the music. But yeah, I guess that's a bit of a idealistic perspective, a bit of a naive perspective to go somewhere and expect things to happen immediately. But yeah, like, honestly, I completely understand where you're coming from, and there seems to be a good scene happening over here as well in AVEIRO. So, you know, with the music industry becoming a bit more globalized, you guys should band together, you know. And sometimes a collective works more than one individual person. So maybe you guys should all start a record label or something. Yeah, so...
They say Lisbon is the new Berlin. So.
Yeah, that's been going on for a couple of years.
Oh, is it Athens? Oh, sorry, Greece took our place.
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago.
Oh well, we'll make our own scene.
Okay, I think I maybe asked too many questions during the last 15 days, so but I have one more. First, just a comment, and like we actually had a talk, masterclass about running peripheral labels from peripheral regions, which was really interesting, and we discussed a lot about how what are considered to be peripheral regions sometimes offer completely different new possibilities and opportunities, and yeah, concerning like community, and also the kind of people you find, the kind of artists you find that maybe you don't even find in other places. But well, but anyway, the question is, okay, with all everything that's going on, with all the layoffs, with all the Melissa was talking today about a lot of outlets that have been going out in the past weeks, not even months or years, that I didn't even know about, but well, unfortunately they apparently did. And with everything that's going on, like where do you see this going in terms of music journalism? Like we talked about print, there's people from radio here, from online, but like I know it's hard and very maybe too open question, but yeah, where do you see this going? Music journalism and the role of music journalism, like in today's music scene.
We're all gonna be replaced by AI.
I would answer that, but I'm really surprised by some young people, really young, like 22 and 23, who are really into music journalism, and I thought that was, you know, something of the past. I've taught people were in music journalism courses, which I must say I didn't really find that to be such a good idea. I always thought, who are we kidding? I mean, these kids are, you know, are paying for having lessons in a music journalism course, but will they ever get jobs? And in fact, they did. There were not that many, but they did get jobs. And now at the radio station, there's a girl, which is even more surprising. A 22-year girl just appeared, and what she wants to do with her life is write about music. And I hadn't seen that for quite a long time. So I think I'm more positive today because of that girl than I was like 3 months ago, when I really thought that, you know, AI is going to take over, not only music journalism, but almost everything. So I don't think we're in such a bad place, but I don't think it's going to be what it used to be. There's no going back to what it used to be in the 80s or even the 90s, where, you know, there were loads of magazines, each for every style, and you had music on TV, which you don't have anymore. In Portugal, you don't have any music on TV. Let's see what is MTV, everything but music. I don't think we'll go back to those days, even though we have social media and TikTok and all that, but I'm more positive than I was a few months ago. So Yeah, maybe there's new blood being injected into the scene, and that's a good thing. Yeah. Sorry?
No, it was a joke.
Yeah, but I didn't listen.
ChatGPT. She's using ChatGPT.
Oh no, she's not. She's not, and she's into old music, which I find amazing. You know, 22-year-old girls that are actively seeking motoric records, from German bands in the 70s, or listening to noise rock from the 90s and saying this is amazing, and discovering dance music now as it never happened. Like, she discovered dance music is not only Steve Aoki and EDM stuff, and that's amazing, because like 3 years ago I used to think that the new generation probably would be stuck on EDM, but they're not. They moved on to drum and bass and stuff like that, and that's good, I think.
Yeah, I'm having the same experience at Ípsilon. A few days ago, we were talking to my editor. My editor was talking to me and saying, because a guy, a young journalist, was suggesting making a review, and he said, "Yeah, okay, go do it." And it's not the first. Just saying, I just hope we have money to pay all these young geniuses that are popping out. So it's there.
Yeah.
And as for the future of music journalism, it seems to me that the future will be to be what it always was: journalism about music. That's what we should stick to. So. Yeah, finding the stories and finding the music that should be put out there, and making what journalism does. I guess there's no other way to look at it. Hoping that not all newspapers will close, or magazines, and that won't happen. So I'm, like Isilda, hopeful for the future. Yeah.
I'm rarely hopeful.
I was gonna ask a question that is very related to what Isilda and Mário are saying, which is, I've been noticing a lot of volunteering types of music journalism, like rimas e batidas, threshold, playback. Do you, first question, do you think that music journalism is becoming more of a personal review and taking a little bit of power from the institutional side of music journalism, making it more democratic? I think institutional journalism is. I listen to Antena 3 and I read Ípsilon. I like it. I like the reviews. I think it's very useful. But do you think it's becoming more democratically made?
Of course.
And would you? And the second question is: are these people that you're mentioning coming from these places? Are these people starting in these small places and getting there?
And the problem with those small places is that the journalists don't get paid.
Yeah,
and
of course.
That's one of the biggest problems in music journalism, I think, and probably in cultural journalism, which is if you do something that you enjoy, you don't need to get paid.
Yeah.
And it's bringing a lot of frustration to the writers, and it's undignifying for the profession, I should think.
There's ethics in this.
And that it's really a shame. And unfortunately, and there are people writing, really, really well. They are brilliant writers. They write really good reviews, and it's a delight to read them.
Yeah.
And it's a pity that there is no way for all of them to be paid.
Yeah.
And but that's a shame, because most online journalism never found a way to prove profitable, and that's our fault as citizens as well, because we don't. And that's true for music, and it's also true for cinema and TV series, mainly these three areas. If we can get it for free, why should we pay for it?
Yeah.
And obviously, we prefer to get it for free.
Yeah.
In arts in general.
DJs too. Artists, musicians.
Yeah. And that's a big problem, because that's you can have people writing brilliant stuff on those sites that you were telling us about, rimas e batidas and threshold and some mothers that, you know, have existed and had to be shut down because they were not profitable. Because people spend 2 or 3 years, even 6 years there writing about, you know, what comes from the heart. And then it comes one day when they have to pay the bills and they don't have more time to keep on writing about music. And maybe they have kids and then life moves on, and then what was once a passion and really moved you gets forgotten, and, you know, people... 10 years later, you ask them, so do you miss the times when you wrote about music? And they'll say, yeah, but it didn't pay the bills, so I had to move on.
No, yeah, I don't think it's a lack of interest of people wanting to write about music. It's a lack of ability to pay them. In this.
Yeah, but that's a problem with everything online, because, you know.
There's way too many websites. And like some of these sites, like the guy from Serbia was saying, you know, these websites where you just read press releases as content, my feeling with those is they're literally just taking the money from Google ads. It's not about anything other than like minesweeping the internet for tiny payments that certain people are getting. It's like, and you have then genuine criticism and journalism competing with what's kind of like a shady, weird business. And so I think it's important that we recognise what that is. Don't support sites like that. Support the sites that do. And if we have money, you know, to actually support the journalism that we care about, whether it's like Patreon accounts or whether it's subscribing to your favourite magazine, whether it's like subscribing to a magazine for 3 months and then moving on to the next one. I think getting something for free when it's from a big corporation is kind of okay. Not always, but definitely like for independent things, like if we care that these things survive, then we actually have to show them that we value them. And the only way to show someone that you value them in a capitalist system is to give them money. So even if it's a little bit, like, it really helps. And I wish it wasn't the case, but it is.
We have a comment and semi-question from the live stream.
Okay.
Well, the comment is, Isilda, you are amazing.
Oh, oh God, it's the girl. It's the girl. I bet it's the girl that I was talking about.
Maybe. It's Renata Rodriguez. And then there's also a question from her also, but I think it's more related to something we talked about before. And I don't understand Portuguese, but it says picamontinhos.
Picamontinhos.
Yeah.
So should I explain what picamontinhos is?
Yeah, please.
Portuguese or English?
English,
so,
maybe.
I'll try to find a translation for the expression. It's like... Jumping little hills, yeah, it's okay. It's like jumping little hills, and you have a vinyl, and it's rotating, and you lift the needle, and you put it on a place on the record, and you and then you put it a little bit, push it a little bit further, and you do that on every track. Yeah, and it's called picamontinhos, jumping little hills, and it was coined. It's an expression coined by that Portuguese journalist. He no longer writes about music. He no longer writes about music. He writes on his daily newspaper, Miguel Esteves Cardoso, and he actually was really influential on lots of people that then decided to write about music. I decided to write about music when I was 13 because I used to read these articles on the newspaper, and yeah, that's amazing. He coined that expression, and everybody was doing it, even though it didn't have a name. And because when you have a new record, you just, oh, I like this one. Oh, and this one. Hey, have you heard this part? And yeah, we still do it with digital because I like that. And then okay, this. Yeah. So it's much better than the fast forward button. Yeah. So, okay. So, thank you very much, for staying with us for almost 2 hours or even more. 3 hours. Jesus. Thank you. Thank you very much. Obrigada. Yeah.